The Call of the Wild, Jack London, 야성의 부름, 11 of 20. 30 days from the time it left Dawson, the saltwater mail with Buck and his mates at the fore arrived at Skagway. They were in a wretched state, one out and one down. Buck's 140 pounds had dwindled to 115. The rest of his mates, though lighter dogs, had relatively lost more weight than he. Pike, the malingerer, who in his lifetime of deceit had often successfully feigned a hurt leg, was now limping in earnest. Sol-leks was limping, and Dop was suffering from a wrenched shoulder blade. They were all terribly footsore. No spring or rebound was left in them. There was no power of recuperation left, no reserve strength to call upon. In less than 5 months, they had traveled 2,500 miles, during the last 1,800 of which they had had but 5 days' rest. When they arrived at Skagway, they were apparently on their last legs. Mush on, poor sore feet, the drive encouraged them as they tottered down the main street of Skagway. The drivers confidently expected a long stopover. Themselves, they had covered 1,200 miles with 2 days' rest. And in the nature of reason and common justice, they deserved an interval of laughing. But so many were the men who had rushed into the Klondike that the congested mail was taking on alpine proportions. Also, there were official orders. Fresh batches of Hudson Bay dogs were to take the places of those worthless for the trail. The worthless ones were to be got rid of, and since dogs count for little against dollars, they were to be sold. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, 2 men from the stage came along and bought them, harness and all, for a song. The men addressed each other as Hal and Charles. Charles was a middle-aged, lightish-colored man. Hal was a youngster of 19 or 20 with a big Colt revolver. Both men were manifestly out of place, and why such as they should adventure the north is part of the mystery of things that passes understanding. Buck heard the chaffering, saw the money pass between the man and the government agent, and knew that the Scotch half-breed and the mail train drivers were passing out of his life on the heels of Perrault and Francois and the others who had gone before. When driven with mace to the new owner's camp, Buck saw a slipshod and slovenly affair, tent half-stretched, dishes unwashed, everything in disorder. Also, he saw a woman, Mercedes, the man called her. She was Charles' wife and her sister, a nice family party. There was a great deal of effort about their manner, but no business-like method. The tent was rolled into an awkward bundle 3 times as large as it should have been. 3 men from a neighboring tent came out and looked on, grinning and winking at one another. "You've got a right smart load as it is," said one of them, "but I wouldn't tote that tent along if I was you." "Undreamed of," cried Mercedes, throwing her hands in vain dismay. "However in the world could I manage without a tent?" "It's springtime, and you won't get any more cold weather," the man replied. The dogs sprang against the breastbands, strained hard for a few moments, then relaxed. They were unable to move the sled. "The lazy brutes, I'll show them," Hal cried, preparing to lash out at them with the whip. "They are weak as water, if you want to know," came the reply from one of the men. "They need a rest." "Rest be blanked," said Hal with his beardless lips. Again, Hal's whip fell upon the dogs. They threw themselves against the breastbands, dug their feet into the packed snow, got down low to it, and put forth all their strength. The sled held as though it were an anchor. After 2 efforts, they stood still, panting. "You poor dears," she cried sympathetically. "Why don't you pull hard? Then you wouldn't be whipped." Buck did not like her, but he was feeling too miserable to resist her, taking it as part of the day's miserable work. One of the onlookers, who had been clenching his teeth to suppress hot speech, now spoke up. The runners are froze fast. Throw your weight against the G-pole, right and left, and break it out. A third time, the attempt was made, but this time, following the advice, Hal broke out the runners, which had been frozen to snow. The overloaded and unwieldy sled forged ahead, Buck and his mate struggling frantically under the rain of blows. As they swung on the turn, the sled went over, spilling half its load through the loose lashings. The dogs never stopped. They were angry because of the ill treatment they had received and the unjust load. Buck was raging. He broke into a run, the team following his lead.